A lovely morning to you. We apologize that we're coming a bit behind schedule on the program this morning. This is Public Square, and here we treat topical issues from the standpoint of the people. All right, in a few weeks to the arrival of President Muhammadu Buhari while he was away in France, Southern governors convened in Asaba, Delta State, to meet regarding the recurring herdsmen farmers clashes in their region, especially as it involves the loss of lives and property, and ways forward. More so, they also try to chart a course as to what should be done to nip that trend in the bud and to prevent a reoccurrence of such happenings in their region. A number of resolutions were made at that meeting, part of which was the outright ban of open grazing in the south. But while this was made, it was also said at that time that they would have to forward some of these resolutions to the president for ratification, or probably to hear what he has to say about it. Upon his return in Nigeria, the president visited Lagos for the commissioning of a number of projects, and he made comments regarding the open grazing ban, which has stirred a lot of reactions from Nigerians. The president was quoted to have said that the grazing reserves should be recovered. That's according to the president, Muhammadu Buhari. Grazing reserves, grazing routes should be recovered across the country in order to stop the trend of killings and continuous clashes between farmers and herdsmen. This morning, we were talking about these comments and other issues surrounding it, and some of the legal perspective to that particular statement by the president. This morning, I'm being joined by Chief Olabisi. He is the secretary of Afenifere and also a politician. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Bisi. Good morning, Nigerians.
We'll also be joined by another legal practitioner. He's also a legal practitioner, so you know. Right. We'll have another lawyer in the house as well, Barrister Wale Abimbola will be joining us in no time. But first, let us look at the trend of continuous clashes between farmers and herders in the country. It's no more news that this continues to happen, despite different efforts by government to ensure that this stops happening. What would you say, given your experience and in politics, and of course your experience in the legal field, what do you think should be the way forward?
Well, thank you very much. There's a need to make some initial clarifications.
Okay.
The president, before he came to Lagos, as soon as the governors met in Asaba, that same evening, the Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, issued a statement declaring the resolution of the governors, particularly in respect to banning open grazing, as unconstitutional. He likened it to spare part sellers in the north, that if the governors of the north will not have the powers to stop spare parts sellers from selling their wares.
We once discussed that on this platform.
Yes.
But what we're looking at today is the comment of the president.
That's
where he said,
what I'm saying.
Okay, go ahead.
That the comment of the president is only reaffirming what the Attorney General had earlier said.
Okay.
What Garba Shehu, his SSA on publication, on communications, had earlier said. And I am saying that both the president, his Attorney General, and Garba Shehu were wrong in such comments from the political, from the legal, from the social, from the cultural point of view. First and foremost, Nigeria is a federation, and in a federal system, the limits of the powers of the various tiers of government are already stated by the constitutions and by the various laws. The resolution by the governors at Adaba are quite in tandem with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Yes, nobody is asking that herders should not carry out their business activities, but they must be carried out within the parameters, within the purview of regulations set by the state government. It cannot be by the federal government under our federal arrangement.
Okay, all right, talking about the grazing reserves now, yes. It is noteworthy to say that Nigeria, as of today, has about 415 grazing reserves in 21 states. We just have 2 in the south. That's in Ogun and Oyo, according to reports in the public domain. As a legal practitioner, and looking at the original Land Use Act that Nigeria is operating on at the moment, do you think that these two sentiments can be married, the Land Use Act and the recovery of the grazing reserves, according to the president?
No. They are mutually exclusive. There is nothing like grazing reserves any longer under the law of Nigeria or under the constitution, and I will explain it.
Okay.
The grazing reserves then were created by regional governments. I'm not even aware of the one that I said was in Oyo and Osun, because we grew up in the West to know
I
know agric farms that were owned by the regional government. We did not grow up. I'm not aware of the existence of any games reserve. Grazing routes in the anywhere in the south, but in the north, it was made by the Ahmadu Bello government, regional government. That same region today had been broken into 19 states. Each state having authority over its land under the Land Use Act, which is an act with constitutional flavor. The Land Use Act is preserved, is part and parcel of the Constitution. The land in every state is vested in the governor of that state to hold in trust for the use of the people of that state. Under that law, it is not possible for the federal government to still talking about reactivating any grazing routes. Even in states where such grazing routes used to exist, it is the governor of such states that can determine whether they are still interested in it or not. And you have had Governor Sam Otom of Benue State who said there is no land reserved for grazing reserves in Benue State. So it's mutually exclusive. What the president was talking, but the president was actually talking as if he's a regional premier. That was what a premier did in 1964 in the northern region. It is no longer applicable in the Nigeria of today.
Okay, talking about the reaction of governors to this announcement, like you rightly said, Benue State Governor Samuel Otom, as well as his counterpart in Bayelsa, the Adiri, says there are no grazing routes in their states. Do you think that, or don't you think that this would cause some sort of face-off between the federal government and states if this lingers on?
No. There's not. The issue is already constitutionally resolved. What face-off? The president was just making a constitutional statement. The statement the president was making with respect to his office and his person has no place in law. So, if any, for instance, when the various states in the southwest set up the Amatekun security network, and the Attorney General of the Federation says this unconstitutional, he was challenged to go to court and challenge such acts of the state. He has since kept his peace. In the same vein, the president was only saying something that has no place under the law. The president cannot be talking, asserting authority over land use. Land use is clearly a state matter. It is only the governors of the states that can determine how the land is such in every state of Nigeria is used, even if it's in Kano. For instance, we just read since yesterday or even today, where the governor Ganduje of Kano says, let all herders from across the country come. He said, take the census of all cow heads and their owners, that there is enough land for them in Kano. That is not, it's not talking about grazing reserve, it's talking of ranching.
Ranching, okay.
Right.
Barrister Abimbola, before your arrival, we were talking about the president's comment regarding the recovery of what he called grazing routes across the country. And first of all, I'd like to hear your comment, as I know you were a lawyer as well, and sometimes we usually have contradicting views from lawyers. So do you think that the president was constitutionally right to have made that announcement?
Thank you very much. I apologize for coming a bit late. It's due to the Nigerian factor. On my way here, I was listening to the submissions, the very brilliant submissions of Balane Senior, Chief Ebisheni, and he has stated exactly the position of the law. I heard the president say, I think in that Arise, I'm sorry to use this language, in that Arise TV babysitted interview, he was as the question of grazing reserve was put to him, or grazing route, and he said he aligned completely with what his Attorney General has said, and which, to me, with due respect to the Attorney General, stood law on its head. The issue of grazing routes was purely a matter of northern Nigeria prior to 1976, when we had when the British Alabama created 19 states, and having promulgated the Land Use Act, which enjoys to put to align with the language of Balane Senior constitutional flavor, then every land in every part of Nigeria is owned in trust, is held in trust by the governor of each state. In other words, if the governor of Ondo State decide to deny FUTA, which is the federal institution, of that land they are occupying, and they want to use it for what they call in overriding public interest, the governor has that right. You recall when the issue of the federal university in Oyekiti today was generating a controversy. Governor Fayedi was saying if they did not cite it where he wanted it cited, that it could well revoke the CFO of the right of occupancy of whoever was occupying the place. So I begin to wonder whether these people still love themselves as they claim to be, because if you are saying that it is the normal way of life of the Fulani man to trek from Sokoto to Ekiti or to my village in Akoko grazing, and you say that is their normal lifestyle, I would have expected the president, for example, to be riding on camels. After all, that was their own normal life, that was their own normal lifestyle.
Okay.
If you are changing with the time, I except if they have a different agenda that is not known to us, that may be known only to Afenifere and other people representing various socio-political interests in Nigeria.
Mr. Abimbola, yes. Let's put this discussion in perspective. The president made his words clear, and I'd like to quote him verbatim. Probably that will give us a better understanding of what he meant, or maybe the law has provision for this particular statement here. He said, the president now says, what I did during that interview that you earlier alluded to, what I did was asking the AGF to go and dig the Gazette of the First Republic when people were obeying laws. There were cattle routes and grazing areas. Cattle routes were for herders when they were moving up country, north to south or east to west. They had to go through there. That's according to the president. Meaning that there were grazing routes, as we call it, but they are specially made routes for these herders to actually graze their cattle. This routes could still be existing if we look at it critically. Is there a way that this can be recovered in the courts of law?
No, it's the same issue. It's the same issue we are talking about. With due respect to the president again, he said he had directed the Attorney General to dig up gazettes. In law, those gazettes, no longer exists because the law under which those gazettes were promulgated. Let's make this clear.
Are you saying the president is behind schedule?
It's far, far behind schedule. If I'm talking politically, the president, you will recall, when organizations like Afenifere and others said, look, let's go back to regionalism. Let's go back to the 1963 Constitution. The federal government said no, that the 1999 Constitution has overridden whatever it's contained in 1963 Constitution.
That's contradictory.
The same president now is asking that the Attorney General should go
Back to
and dig
1963.
up some archaic gazettes which were made under the 1963 Constitution. You see, it's contradiction in terms. The truth, without wasting time on the matter, is that neither the Attorney General nor his principal, the president, has the power over land. And even if those grassroots exist, like my learned friend said, the governors of each of those states today can decide what to do with them and say we no longer want grazing roots. That is the end of
talking
it.
Politically now, you
Yes.
just cited what the Constitution says, what the Land Use Act says. It vests the power solely in governance. Okay, to allocate
trust.
land. All right, so now, politically speaking, we're in the days where a lot of governors are stooges, so to speak,
Yes.
to the powers that be, to
Yes.
the central power.
Yes.
Do you think that if in the event that the president insists
Yes.
that this be done,
Yes.
governors would be empowered to actually take their rightful place?
No. Such
And stand,
such governors, we still have to go back to the House of Assembly of the state to pass such law. They will go back to the Houses of Assembly to pass such law. The governor, of course, if the president is interested, actually, politically, he can go, lobbying the governors who are willing, and in states that are willing.
Or even give an executive order?
No, he cannot give any such executive order.
Okay.
In states that are willing. Let me say that the land in the states, right, is held in trust by the governor for the people. The land does not belong to the governor. So the governor himself cannot stand up today and say, oh, we want to cede this land for grazing reserve. Because for him to be grazing route, for him to be able to cede it for grazing route, the governor has to show, the governor has to acquire such land, and the purpose for acquiring that land will be for overriding public interest. So the governor cannot come to my father's farm now and acquire the land of my ancestors, which we have been enjoying, and say he will now give it to another private person like a Fulani to graze.
Okay,
He won't have such powers.
Barrister Bimbola, this goes again to buttress the fact that there is a lot of gray areas in the country's constitution that need to be amended. Some people say that restructuring is what Nigeria needs to move forward to avoid all of this back and forth that we experience in the polity of the nation. What would be your idea?
My idea is very simple. On this issue of open grazing, if we want to read into it strictly, the constitution is clear. There is no contradiction there. Since the Land Use Act itself forms a part of the constitution, and to that extent, no president today, no Attorney General of the Federation today can appropriate the land of my father's land in my village or my land and give to another person. You remember that this issue of cattle rearing is purely an individual business. I'm sure there was no president that forced the land on which Adaba FM is standing today, that forcefully took it and gave it to Adaba FM. No, Adaba FM must have passed through the process of land acquisition, whether by purchase or any other means. So yes, coming to the issue of restructuring, I think Nigeria got it wrong on that day when JTU Aguiyi-Ironsi made that decree that dissolved the regions. It was on that day, since that day, that some people now know that they can sit down in their villages doing nothing and be running to the center to collect money every month. That was the day Nigeria missed it. Until we retrace our way back to the pre-1963 dispensation, Nigeria may not have any headway. We need to really have
to the 1963 constitution.
Yeah, let us have, let power flow from the regions. We have an over-congested exclusive list in the constitution. There are too many things that do not concern the federal government.
Are you saying that the 1960s, according to you, the 1963 constitution should be revisited, just like we had the governor of Ondo State opine the other day?
Yes, I align with him on that.
Okay, now we're talking about
that is in that constitution. That constitution is
should it be adopted holistically, or some useful parts of the constitution be expunged?
Of course, we can't adopt it holistically again, because under the 1963 constitution, Nigeria had 4 states, but now we have more federal units than we used to have then. But the very important aspects of that constitution vested powers in the federated units, as opposed to now where we have a president that is a behemoth. The president was saying in that interview, for example, that governors will go and defend their states, when governors have no power over who becomes the commissioner of police in the state. Calling the governor a security officer of the state is mere dressing him in the borrowed robe. It's not. The government does not have power over a DPO.
Okay, as a legal practitioner, Mr. Bishene, and the secretary of Afenifere,
yes,
there must be a particular stance that Afenifere has regarding all of these issues at hand.
Right.
What would be your stand?
Thank you very much. The whole world knows that Afenifere is the author in Nigeria of federalism and the greatest advocate of a return of Nigeria to federalism through a restructuring process. We have made this point clear in every sphere, and as the Secretary General of the organization, I know I've been directed by the organization to make several statements recently on the matter. But the truth really is that Nigeria, thank God for Wole Soyinka yesterday, Nigeria cannot claim to be a federal state and be governed by a unitary constitution like we have. So many things are wrong with the 1999 constitution, and there is already a consensus. Let me tell you, there's already a consensus in the country, and I'll give you about 4 of such consensus that will make it clear that only the president today is on his own on the issue of whether Nigeria should be restructured or not. Afenifere, Ohaneze Ndigbo, PANDEF, and the Middle Belt Forum all says let Nigeria be restructured, even the Northern Elders Forum, on the basis of 1963 constitution to be modified to meet current day realities. Now, in 2014, the Jonathan administration set up a national conference. I was a delegate representing the Southwest at that conference. The conference came up with a report that tallies with what Nigerians are saying in respect of restructuring to reinvent federalism. When this present administration came in, the APC federal government set up a committee led by Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna State. All the resolutions of the 2014 confab were virtually repeated by the Rufai government. By the Rufai committee. Recently, the governors of the South, all of them in one accord, came together saying the same thing. The governors even of the North. For instance, 2 days ago, was it yesterday? I was listening to the Emir of Zawzaw. The Emir of Zawzaw called on his people, stand up and defend yourself. And yesterday, the whole security gamut of Kaduna and Nigeria went before the Emir of Zawzaw and said, please, sir, allow us to make use of your vigilante to assist us. What is that vigilante? That is what we are talking when we mean state police. And thank God for our governor here. He said the Amotekun will invariably, devolve or transmute into a state police. You cannot say the governors are chief security officer when they have nothing to secure. There is no government properly so called that does not have the power to enforce, his laws. One of the areas I've always spoken about is the issue of local government system. Under the 1999 constitution, the greatest injustice that is done to the people of Nigeria is the local government system. You heard some of our colleagues talk about local government autonomy. I have no quarrels about that. But the list of the local government in the constitution today is so nauseating and arbitrary. I'll give you just a few examples. Under the 1979 constitution, Imo State had 21 local governments. Kano had 20. Imo has now been broken into Imo and Abia. Imo now has 27. Abia has 17, making 44. Imo, the same Kano that had 20, one less than Imo, is broken into two. Jigawa 27, Kano 44. The two of them now 71. Kano, Jigawa, and Katsina State has 105 local government. The entire southeast of Nigeria had 95. And it's not limited there. I've given an example even in the southwest. Ondo State today, in population and size, is bigger than Osun. Osun has 30. Ondo State had 18. So if you join Ondo and Ekiti together, we'll be having 34. Osun alone, we have 30. How did we come about that? So, and it is because local government have now been made source of revenue, basis of revenue allocation under the native authority system, where local government was not a basis of revenue allocation. Nobody creates more local government. Lagos State wanted to create local government. The federal government said it does not have the power. The Akura South we used to know is almost up to Ifedore today, and almost up to Idori, almost getting to Ushu, to Wasowo. That this local government today, under normal circumstances, local government is supposed to respond to growth and development, so that you create new centers of development to take care of new growth. Under the constitution as it is today, till kingdom come, nobody can create one additional local government. Okay. So there's so many areas. So that's what we call restructuring. Okay,
for a lot of years, for so many years now, I've been hearing about the emergence of a new Nigeria in quote, where a lot of people believe that someday in the nearest future, Nigeria would be better than it was at that time. But I don't think we've ever had a country that has so much divisive tendencies before the advent of this administration, with Barrister Bimbola now. A part of this fallout is the rising cases of constant clashes between herdsmen and farmers in Nigeria. And then one begins to sit back and have a rethink of what really the problem is. Where did we get it wrong? Where did we actually fall apart as a people?
I'll start by taking strong exception, to the constant use by the Nigerian media, and I'm attacking the media here, of the word FarmersHerders Clashes. We don't have FarmersHerders Clashes. We have herders madness. The farmer is sitting down in his farming.
There are two parties involved.
There's only one party threatening. There is only one party threatening the existence of the other. So I do not see a clash here. What I see here is the invasion of some people. Let me not, so that we don't begin to.
FarmersHerders Clashes is a grammatical.
Well, I will concede that to the media,
and it's correct. It's not fallacy.
I will concede that to the media.
Okay.
Here, the question is. In Nigeria, we are unlike established countries like the United States, for example, where there are institutions. Nigeria is built around strong bacchanalities as opposed to strong institutions. President Shagari was a Fulani man. There was no mention of this. If they were, there used to be internal mechanisms of resolving crisis between farmers and cattle rearers. President Yar'Adua was a Fulani man from the same Katsina as President Buhari. When he was there, these things were not as pronounced as they are today.
So what's the problem?
I think the body language of the man at the top. Let's not hide anything about it.
Okay.
The body language of the man at the top. Today he will tell you that, oh, the Fulani man only goes around with a stick in his hand. Tomorrow he will go, he will travel abroad and say, no, it was the hangover or spillover of Gaddafi boys that came from Libya. The next day, some people will be killed somewhere, and he will tell Governor Tom to tell his people to exist peacefully with their fellow countrymen. So I think Professor Soyinka was very correct some months ago when he said all that was needed was for the president to come out and say, look, enough of invasion, by cows of other people's farms.
Okay,
the president, you will recall, the president himself has a ranch. Why did he not allow his cows to be strained here and there?
Don't you think it would be better to focus more on the intent, so intention, as you might want to call it, of the president rather than his body language?
Well,
in the latest interview that we actually are trying to dissect on this table, the president goes ahead to say verbatim, quoting him now, that in the 1963 constitution that he referred to,
which the government does not want to go back to,
which he referred to, yes. Quote, if you allow, he said in the statement that in those times, people used to obey laws than they do now. Now it says, if you allow your cattle to stray into any farm, you are arrested. That's back then. The farmer is invited to submit his claims. The Qadi or the judge then will say, pay this amount. And if you can't, the cattle is sold. And if there is any benefit, you are giving the people who are behaving themselves, you are given, and the people were behaving themselves. And in the grazing areas, they built dams, put windmills in some places. There were even veterinary departments so that the herders are limited. Their routes is known, their grazing area is known. So I asked for the Gazette to make sure that those who encroached on these cattle routes and grazing areas will be dispossessed in law and try to bring some order back into the cattle grazing. Now, the highlight is bringing order back into the cattle grazing, cattle grazing. No, let's holistically look at this statement and try to probably read through the president's mind to see what exactly is running through his
Yes, thank you. I'll pick some keywords there.
Okay.
Cattle grazing, grazing routes, and that is the constitution. And people obeying the law. Now, today, people don't obey the law because there are no consequences for actions taken. People get killed and nobody gets arrested.
Okay.
I've not seen, you rarely see somebody being prosecuted in court for invading some other person's farm.
That's right.
That's one. And two, he mentioned the issue of a Qadi or a judge or a community calling people to, make restitutions. Today, you dare not talk about restitution. Otherwise, the man gets killed on his farm. Three, the next is the constitution. I love the way the president chooses and picks what suits his narrative. He loves certain things in the constitution, but he does not want us to go back to true federalism. He does not want what we call restructuring. He doesn't want it. So as far as
we cannot outrightly say that because the National Assembly has already begun the process of
the National Assembly has begun the ritual.
We don't want to preempt failure already.
Oh, we are already seeing the handwritings are already on the wall.
What handwriting are you talking about?
Oh, of course.
The handwriting on the wall.
Of course.
It seems you know what I don't.
When you have a public hearing involving 3 or 4 states, you pack them into a 250 seater hall. Into a hall that can contain less than 90 people, and you are saying you want to have what are we reviewing?
That's not. You have hit the nail on the head by saying that the handwritings on the wall. The handwritings are not just on the wall. Those who are operating or those who are embarking on the constitutional review themselves had made statements that suggest that they are helpless. I listened to Magige the Deputy Senate President, and said, look, yes, that's everything.
And the chairman of the
chairman, and said, look, we are limited by Section 9 of the Constitution. We can only do piecemeal amendments of the Constitution. We do not have the power to do wholesale amendment or review. We do not have power to give the Nigerian people a new constitution. The Nigerian people.
What he meant by that, yes. I understand
yes.
where you're coming from. What he meant by that is the old constitution, 1999 constitution,
yes.
cannot be discarded.
Yes.
It can only be amended.
It can be discarded by amendment.
Yes.
That's my point. Amendment, even in law, even in civil procedures, amendment include substitution
yes.
of what you already have.
The evidence has prepared the previous ones.
That which one you have can be wholesale reviewed and substituted by a new one. The Section 8 and now the Constitution that he has quoted gives them power. The Constitution says any provision of this Constitution may be altered. And the English word any includes all. If you can do anything, yes, you can do everything. You say, with God all things are possible. With God anything is possible. So you can, under the provision, under that same word, any, do all.
Any?
Because, yes, Nigerians are saying...
Okay, this is not an English class,
yes,
actually.
Nigerians,
I'd like to hold you on that.
Yes.
Any may not mean every.
How do you mean?
Any could mean...
Yes,
any of these.
Yes,
yes, and it could mean
all of
can
these.
Begin to pick one
yes.
and one
yes.
and one and one and amend.
Yes, he didn't ask you pick one. Pick one is different from pick any.
Okay, so
yes.
now we have limited time on our hands.
So what I'm saying, finally on this is that what Nigerians are clamoring for is a new constitution. Nigerians have said the world. We, the people of Nigeria, agree to give this constitution is fraudulent.
Are you confident, as a lawyer, as a legal practitioner, that a new constitution will solve the myriads of problems Nigerians face?
Oh, yes. If it's a constitution that Nigerians themselves give to themselves, if we give a constitution to ourselves, when the president was talking about laws not being obeyed.
The 1963 constitution that we so much adore, that we so much glorify now, once worked for Nigeria.
Yes,
the 1999 constitution once worked for Nigeria.
1999 constitution has never worked.
It has never worked.
From the beginning, it has never worked.
Because it
was put together. In fact, the 1979 was made through a constituent assembly. Yes. In this one, 1999 constitution,
it was made by
Absalami was in a hurry to go. Nadeko says leave, and in the interim put a constitution. Wants to put a constitution to hurry out with the view that Nigerians thereafter will come and make the constitution of Nigeria. But the current president, Bimbo was talking about his body language. It's not body language. It was an act. The president has told Nigerians that this 1999 constitution, that nobody is going to touch it, nobody is going to do anything about it. He asked before that interview on Arise, when the INEC people went to visit him, where he made comment concerning the civil war, the president said, are they saying that I am not acting according to the constitution?
Okay, because of our time, we really have to run. Mr. Bisheni, what will be your part in short in just 10 seconds? Going forward, what should...
Nigerians are clamoring for a true federal constitution to regulate the affairs of the entrenched ethnic nationalities. Nigeria is not just put together anyhow. There are entrenched ethnic nationalities with their own way of doing things before Nigeria was brought together as a country. And it is only a federal constitution that can regulate such relationship.
Okay.
You see that we do that behind us now. Let me speak now as an Afenifere person. I'm sorry. Afenifere has been talking about restructuring. Today, as I speak, restructuring is no longer exciting to the people. The people are talking of self-determination. The people are saying, give us our individual nations.
So
And
we
those-
believe, some
yes.
of us still believe in the unity
Yes,
of
I
Nigeria.
do. But those who make peaceful change impossible
All right.
are asking for violent
Okay,
revolution.
but violent, that word is...
They are, yes.
Well, we do not want violent.
I said they are
revolution.
asking for it. I'm
Okay.
not here.
Barrister,
You can see what is
my
happening in the
party
Southeast. In Southeast already.
General Muhammadu Buhari has been favored by God and by Nigeria. As far back as the 1970s, he has been a military governor. He has been health minister. He was head of state 84 to 85. He came back again exactly 30 years after to become president. There is nothing. I don't think he needs anything more from Nigeria than to write his name in gold and leave a country where, like the national anthem said, the national anthem, that to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign.
Yeah.
May God help him as he does it.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'd like to thank Chief Olabisi, Secretary General Afenifere, for coming on the program. Barrister Wale Abimbola, thank you very much for being
Always
a part
my
of the
pleasure.
show. My name is Olabisi Olaniyi Oluwasegun, and as we present all of these agitations, let's always remember that the peace and unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable. Good morning.
Adaba 88.9 FM.